Hi, this is Sheila with Conscious Conversation Central. And today is Friday, August the 31st, 2018. And it's just me and BZ here tonight. Lisa can't join us. She's in Minnesota visiting family. So she won't be joining us tonight. And we really decided that we're just kind of gonna start and see where it takes us, because as usual, we were chatting off camera and it would have been a really good conversation.
It was good stuff. Now we're just going to sit here and look at each other going, huh.
No. Well, let's start with actually, because this really has been, I've seen it a lot, and we've kind of talked about it a little bit too, where, Sophia Love did an article where she said, we're seeing everything that's unascended. You've talked about the tube of toothpaste, and we all know that that's going on. And the energetics, of course, have been really ramping up. And we were talking earlier that there's a lot of Q posts out right now, too. And I was sharing with you that unbeknownst to me, Trump was in Charlotte today. I got an rather excited call from my son that because the motorcade passed him by on the interstate, he was pretty impressed that he got to be that close to the president. So, I don't know, I was sharing with you earlier that around 2 p.m. Eastern time today, I started noticing anxiety, a lot of anxiety that really didn't feel like it was mine, because I don't have anything right now in this moment of now that I could point to that made it mine. And when I was feeling into it, it didn't feel like it was mine. And yet it was physically there.
Right.
It was not the excited type of feeling. And so when I was sharing that with you earlier, not only did you agree with me that I was probably feeling a bit of the collective, but you also said something else that I found very intriguing, because it could also be some other things you said that are coming in to be integrated from other aspects of me. And although we've talked about things like that, I hadn't really given that a lot of thought. And so I was wondering if you would, I don't know why that came up right this moment of now, but I think it's obviously that, that's something that maybe needed to come up.
Yeah, well, I mean, so let's play with that for a minute, where if someone's having anxiety, right, and so they're right here and they're feeling anxious, it could be that something in their surroundings or something that they're kind of spinning on is causing that anxiety. Okay, so they kind of feel in, they check that out, and no, okay. It could be them because everything is coming up for integration, and it can be something that could have been, a bit ago that was seemingly resolved, and now this is because everything is toroidal, right? So everything is coming back around, and there may have been one last pocket for you to clear out, or it could have been too because you had played with that for so long that it was so ingrained that there really was this deep energetic groove or rut, depending on how you would look at it, around that it's coming around. And again, it's your soul, because your soul is fully coming in, fully kind of lined up and taking control of the organic human brain and shifting it over to it, because it's changing everything as well. So it could be your soul doing a proving part where, so, you've had conversations, whether you remember them or not, you've had conversations, you're clearing these things out. These are important to integrate and resolve and transmute back to love. So could be a small pocket of it, but it's being amplified by your soul, that pocket, for you to look at for proving. Because are you going to go, oh my God, I feel, you just thought, well, it doesn't look like mine, but I feel it in my body. But, so it can be that happens quite often, not just with anxiety, but all sorts of things. It's a way to see Are you trusting? So is the head leading the whole body and the conversation and all that's going on, or is your heart leading it? So your heart goes, yeah, the physical apparatus feels that anxiety, and no, this is not the anticipatory anxiety. This is the anxiety. But I don't know. There's nothing here that's making me anxious. And, so I mean, it kind of goes to this whole checklist, just as you described it. I'm just describing a different way of exactly what you described.
Right.
And so that's part of approving. It can be, so still sticking with this embodiment, it can be earlier on and could be some of the same things I just talked about. It could be something from when, well, that's interesting. Okay, I hadn't thought about that. So I was going to say, it could be something when you, from childhood and not fully integrated. But the other thing that just came in was that, and this could be for you, but this, I'm using it not just as pointed as you statement, but as a general statement. It could be that if you had either a walk-in or a soul merging, or there are various things that can occur, that what you're feeling is something around that time. So the one that came in, which would be the one, if I'm standing here looking at that particular person that's here now, remembering that part. So in other words, they're not feeling it as theirs because it's not theirs, but in the vessel, when there was the two there and then one left, right? Because sometimes if there's a swapping of emissions, so sometimes, and this is a whole other topic, but sometimes you'll have a being come into the body because that body and who are the parents, and all that kind of stuff is set up right. But there is so much kind of vying going on prior to the soul coming in, that there was an agreement made that one would come in first so that it could be born and all that kind of stuff. And then there would be kind of a together. So another one comes in, they kind of learn the ropes from the other one, so it's more seamless. And then the first one leaves. And the reason that is, if there's so much stuff to be done and missions, and there's so much attention being called, again, from the linear perspective, from the bad guys and the good guys, kind of trying to position their pieces, or kind of a thing. So that happens actually quite in these moments, for the beings that are here, quite a lot. So anyways, I hadn't even thought about that when we were talking about it before. So
well, and I find that kind of interesting that you did think about it this time, and because it sounds as though, if I understood what you were saying right there, that some, and possibly myself even, have more than one being embodying at the same time. By prior agreement, of course, it would have to be.
Yeah, and from my understanding, that's usually a short window. I don't, and don't know the end all and be all, obviously, but I don't believe that goes on for very long. I think it's just a short, maybe a, 4 to 6 week window, so that there's a,
Yeah, that's.
I mean, think about it. If you're a kid and you got friends, you got this and you got that, and all of a sudden the new one comes in, well, it's going to be different.
Right.
And if you're trying to go under the radar, it would be helpful if you remembered your best friend Susie Q's name.
Well, and so this is a term that I've heard before. Are you describing something similar to like a walk-in?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and they come in different region, and the other times it could happen where the first soul comes in and is there, and either they decide they really don't like it or they want out, or there's some some kind of ailment or something, but because of it could be the lineage, it could be just that family and what's going on, it could be, I mean, you know, all sorts of different things are at play, that another soul, you know, gets the agreement of the one that's there already and says, well, I would like to take this opening because this fits in with what I want to accomplish in the mission and all that kind of my purpose. And so that then it's, you know, worked out. And that's, you know, maybe the biggest takeaway from that right there is that there is so much communication and so much connection and so much conversation and so much kind of viewing, reviewing, feeling into before you actually even, you know, get into the womb to come out to have someone smack you on the ass and and put your foot on an ink pad and now you're in the slavery system. You know, so there's a lot of stuff that goes on before that.
Yeah, I've always felt like there was a lot that's arranged. I even thought that before I had an expanded bit of consciousness. I felt like there's a lot being arranged, and the more,
right. And we're arranging it.
The so more my expansion occurred.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Right. It's not like an arranged marriage, and you know, and someone's doing it to you. It's none of that. You're really actively involved, and you know, so. But I mean, that just struck me as one that would be something that's a really good takeaway from that just little kind of snippet of conversation that we're playing in, because I think an awful lot of beings, they don't really, if that's ever occurred to them, or if they've ever thought about it, or because for so many, and even still, you know, as people are expanding more and they're waking up more and they're, you know, trusting their heart more, there's such a propensity to feel small and to go with that kind of stuff that was handed to them. There's a large propensity to go, well, I didn't, you know, say that, I didn't do that, I, you know, I wouldn't agree to this, that, and the other thing. But we are, I mean, that is, it's us, because to go against that, you know, prior to coming in and all that kind of stuff is, it's not allowed. It, you know, unless there is some form of hijacking of the being, and that's a whole, you know, other big topic. But, you know, just to say for overall view, which is most of the occurrences, yeah, there is all that discussion. And so when people say, well, if they're thinking of something hard in their life or frustrating or whatever it is, and I wouldn't have chosen it, well, because we look at it from, oftentimes, depending until our perspective expands, we look at it from a perspective that, well, that we're small, and that we only got this one life, or maybe, you know, some reincarnation kind of stuff, and you know, we got to get what we can get, or just survive, or just get by. And I mean, think of all the words, you know, that are out there that we use all the time and don't even think about it. And they're all painting a picture, and more important than that, it's not indelible, because it's, you know, it's dissolving and coming apart right now, but had heretofore had the strongly, you know, imbued perception that these were indelible things within our being about, you know, what's going on. And it's not the case at all. You know, to be of service, with absolutely including service to self as other, right, is the coolest thing, the funnest thing, the most joyful thing, the highest moment, the absolute hot fudge sundae with a strawberry on top or something, whatever you think is a really cool thing. It's and it's not something that you think about all the time, because it's just who you are.
Yeah, it does become like that. I wanted to add that when we were talking about that earlier, about the anxiety that I was feeling, and you were explaining, or sharing with us about the possibility of the walk-in thing. For some reason, another thing came in for me too, is that all the different, if there are other aspects, is the word that I want to use, of me, because of the fractaling and going out in different densities and dimensions and that sort of thing, as different aspects come back in for that integration, I would imagine that could be viewed as part of that too.
Yeah, your multidimensional self. So you can do, if you're talking about something on a collective level, it's a I'm processing or integrating something on a collective level. So there are many different collectives and many different levels to that, because they're all multidimensional. Nothing is just linear. So you could take that just on on you yourself and your different selves,
Right,
from
that's
your multidimensionalness, are imploding into you. Absolutely, yes.
right.
You can also be that each one of those, and it doesn't have to be just one, would be part of a coherence in a collective, and it could be that collective. So let's say, this aspect as you described it, and the collective that aspect is in coherence with, now you could be doing collective integration, or integration of a collective anxiety, right, that's coming in. Right. So, you may have heard something about the liar and trauma, and there's all sorts of different things, which are then, again, referring to collectives, right, and events or things or large frequency energetic waves of something that occurred. So it was a sharing that came in with that. So, lots of those different things come in play. It's interesting. I heard someone just say, well, but you guys you're kind of only talking about one thing so far, but you're, and how can that be? Well, because we're multidimensional.
Right.
And so maybe let's play with this for a minute. How do you play with your multidimensionality? How do you follow the bouncing balls of multidimensionality? How do you look at one thing, or just, kind of, maybe you're sitting in a chair and you're kind of looking at stuff in your house, and hold it from your scope, just as you as this, just, okay, I'm thinking of me just as a plain old human being, right? And then how can I catch the other parts, or if I'm just kind of musing on the multidimensionality of that? One of the best ways, which is kind of, and tenet's not the right word, that's a linear word, but, I'll go with it for a minute as a placeholder. Tenets of playing with that multidimensionality is that you're not pegging something down, because as soon as you peg something down, you actually have, put constraints on the multidimensionality and actually the flow of that, because it doesn't flow like this, start here and end here. It flows like this, so it's circular and toroidal, and it's moving, and kind of you could say the beginning and the end kind of meet each other, and then the end passes the beginning, and or the end is up here and the beginning's down. So it's not moving in that way, and it's it's multidimensional, meaning there's different dimensions and levels and layers and energetic frequencies. So their thought forms and their realities within there, and they're all, you know, you could kind of, if you think dimensional, so like this, right? Okay. And then, but they're all multidimensional, so they're actually in a sphere. And then you've got the quantum, which is, on one way you can have it be a specific, that it's quantum is more directional, right? So quantum is like, if you're here, your quantumness has you in all of these different timelines. So we've talked about that, where you've made a decision, and so yes, no, on one particular thing, right? You know,
Right.
And you know, I feel a lot of people going, yeah, it's blows mine, but yeah, and some going, what? But okay, so okay, this is, you know, this is probably why we don't do these too often, because
they do tend to go off the rails a little sometimes, you know.
The Excedrin bottle is being reached for right this minute. So okay, so hold this picture for a minute. So we've talked about the trajectory where you're going away from source, right? And you're out there to explore and to create and to create and create, and you know, and know source, and then come back and report. Okay, great. So source is all that ever is, was, will be, you know, it's the whole enchilada, because it's eternal, because there is no beginning, there is no end, and it's all inclusive, so to say. Right. And it's all inclusive, but there is not a structure to the inclusiveness, because the all inclusive actually includes things that were heretofore not includable because they didn't exist, because they were just potentiality, but that's included as well. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, it really does. I mean, I made a face, but yes, it does. It makes sense, unbelievably so, but it does to me.
Okay, so if you got that part about source, right, and then you got all of the entities, right? You know, so I don't narrow down what a being's entities whole. It could be the whole range of them going forth and creating and all that, right? So this is a big job, because you know, this is like, well, it doesn't even, can't even sphere or shape it, because it's so ginormous. So it's just a lot, right? we'll make that simple. So if all of those, what I'm trying to get is that if all of those other beings, entities that are going forth, right, and doing all these other things, and you just take, see if we can use this. So you just take this one is going forth. Oh, this is good. So this one is going forth, right? Going on the trajectory away to create, gather all sorts of things, really expand, because as you're going away from source, you're forgetting that you're source. You're forgetting all of that. You're having these veils and all sorts of things, which, you know, you're directing that, all covering that. So you're actually having more expansion, because if you can forget that you originated from here, and actually all are a hologram of everything, which is, we just described what everything here is. It's like more everything than you ever think, right?
Right.
So if you can come away like this and forget that you're this, that's a lot of expansion. That's a lot of creativity. That's a lot of different levels and layers of playing and creating and roles. And like, if you were an actor, you know, and you forget that there are Oscars or something, if you're, you know, in theater, in movies, right, you forget that. That's a lot, because you're so ensconced in all the creating and playing. So now I'm going to turn, was you. So now I'm going to turn you around, but now you're going out, right? And you're all of these, right? And instead of just one, but now just one, let's say one that was you for your multidimensional, this is to represent your multidimensionality. One that was you goes forward and has a node point, so a very large, these are linear placeholder words, not accurate, but it's the best I got. So you have a very large node point decision that you've come to, right? And it has lots of different aspects, could be trajectories, you could look at it different. Okay, well now just that part of you has turned into all of these different things on the quantumness of that one thing. So
Right.
this is a being with experiences and its reality going forth and exploring and doing the same thing of the trajectory away. In addition to all these other ones, which is this one, but these are just on this one big node point.
So like, so you're saying that at like a node point or a choice point, one could say any kind of a big thing where there's, you know, a big choice or a big decision or.
Well, it's more than that. A node point, that's why it makes it a node point. So yes, one can go and have a decision when there's node points, and you'll even if you don't understand any of this or haven't heard about this or even wouldn't classify yourself, you know, as awakened, there are node points where this is not the full explanation, but a seminal moment might be one. That's just a tiny little part of it. But a node point actually is something that is felt, realized in various ways depending on, you know, what's going on in this trajectory and this trajectory, but across all.
Okay, I see.
So if these are all going out, right? And see, like I have the knuckles on there's a node point that actually intersects for all of them.
Ah, I gotcha. Oh, okay.
So in this reality, in this day, I'm wearing, you know, blue shorts and a purple shirt, and I'm working on this one thing, and let's say I meet someone, and I could be meeting this person or this being, you know, or I could be having a dream or whatever it is. So there's different ways, you know, because I don't want to limit how you might think about it.
Right.
But
right.
there, in other words, there's something that at the same moment that happens, and that's why when you heard about timeline jumping,
right,
you can, so again, you have to say what perspective are you looking, because you can timeline jump within your own quantumness, right? You can also timeline jump on larger, which you might describe them as collective timelines, right? Or timelines. Now, the other thing, people, you know, timelines for Gaia. Well, that's a timeline for Gaia, but that's also if you're hanging out on Gaia's back, you know, right?
Right.
So, anyways, I just want to finish by, we can go play with that a little bit more, but I want to finish by what I started with was one of the helpful, did I finish on that idea? The helpful way to kind of navigate this is by playing with it rather than trying to think it and grab it and hold it, because that's when it's the least understandable, because it isn't rigid, it isn't linear. And think about the way, doesn't really matter much what country you're from, but on this planet heretofore, that learning has been done. Like you have history books of this happened before, and now this, and, you know, there's a very distinct reason why that kind of formulaic process for learning has been implanted, literally and metaphorically, within us, because it is the opposite or an anathema to truly the way that we exist and how we roll and swim through all of our selves, all of our lives, and all of what is existence, for lack of a better word. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, it did. And another possibility, plausibility, potentiality came to me while we were talking about this too, and that is just a few moments ago. So we have, it could be my own specific collective. It could be the collective that we will sometimes refer to, because we are all part of this collective here too. And then we also talked about the possibility of a different aspect or a different being even. But I also, for some reason, got that it can also be a cellular memory that's been triggered without my conscious knowledge, I guess.
Yes.
Because as we're going through a lot of these energetics and things that are activating, cleansing different portions of our DNA, I would imagine, well, no, it's not an imagination. It just came in really strong that in and of itself, as cellular memories that might come up, not just my own cellular memories, but because of the genetics of DNA in and of itself, I feel that we each and every one of us carried the cellular memory for all of our ancestors going back in the bloodline that we, 3D body vessel came into in the family lines that so there's going to be, I would imagine, and I'm not quite sure it makes any difference if I know exactly where it's coming from. I guess if it's something I need to know, then I would know. Right. And I'm not going to
no, and that attachment to knowing is a linear thing, which is something that needs to be integrated as well.
Right.
So it may present to you, oh, maybe I need to figure that out. And you go through all that process and you still don't necessarily figure it out because that's irrelevant. It was just the thought of the propensity to have to figure something out and to know that, it happened when and so on and so on and so forth. That needs to be integrated as well. Because remember what we just talked about of understanding, or, it's really remembering, how we as beings, from source can swim, play in all of this. It's not being attached to that. It's not sticking, something in the sand. Now that doesn't mean that you can't fully explore this, but well, hey, that looks at, well, great, do it. No one's stopping you because you're multidimensional, so you can do all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
But because you're not using that same attachment, which is a constrictive energy, you can experience all of it simultaneously. You can have your undivided attention and focus on one area here and still be, well, okay, here's a bulletin. You are. you're already doing it. I see it. You didn't even remember.
Yeah, no, that's right.
But
yeah.
On you mentioned, just want to go back to the cellular memory. What came to me is a picture, like if you think of a glass of soda with all the bubbles in it. And so each individual bubble would be part of a cellular memory. And so you can see it. It's tangible because it's a thought form. It's a construct. It's actually reality in that cellular memory. And so each one of those needs to be integrated. So you could think, well, if you're drinking soda, you're integrating all of that, and it's going through, and it's now you're taking, let's say, the part of part of the expansion that came with that, right? And then you're letting the rest go. You're letting the rest dematerialize and go back to just pure energy. So you're not, there's not attached. That's why, we've talked about where it's not bad or wrong to feel anger, just as an example, right? And feel it. I mean, go right in, dive it up, and then explore what that is and integrate it. So now you're not making your own codes. You're not making part of your own process of creation. That is this very strong thing that's anger is something that you want to create out there. And now you're looking at it.
Right. Yeah, no, I didn't feel like I needed to know because like I said, I felt like, and I still do, that it was something that, and whether it just wasn't something right in that moment, how, I've experienced anxiety and know exactly what's causing it, something I'm thinking about or something I've been in fear in or over or something like that, and so it was more of a noticing.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I felt kind of, I don't know, for some reason when we started talking, it just came in immediately that, hey, okay, maybe this would be a good one to have, because there are a lot of different possibilities, and it's not always going to be, and it's not necessary to have to know. As long as I know it's not something that I need to address in this embodiment, such as being anxious over, I don't know, just something, I don't even have anything I can point to right now to say, that then I would like to look at and figure out why I'm feeling that way, because that's what I do. It's what I've been doing, anytime I have a visceral reaction to anything, I'd like to know what that's about so that I can integrate it. And so in the noticing of that and kind of looking around at, okay, well, it's nothing that I can put my finger on, so I'm not going to worry about it. But it was a noticing.
But see, you also, I think, gave a really nice description of how your recipe, for lack of a better way to describe it, right? So your recipe for how you look at those things, for how you encounter or meet, anxiety, hi, hello. You meet that. Your recipe is changing and evolving because there isn't that need to examine everything, because it's there. You're doing a lot of what you were doing before, but you're doing it in less than a nanosecond.
Right.
And then so you may describe it like you did. Well, okay, I checked in and it wasn't anything, so it's something outside. Yeah. And it doesn't really matter. But what I'm saying is we're constantly evolving and we're constantly shifting and changing our recipe for how we're moving through these things, because it's more expansive in a more expansive way and a more expansive way, which takes less and less time, right, to do that. And again, that's why, going back to what I said a moment ago about playing and not pegging, because then if you're stuck on the recipe, but I'm not doing, okay, well, now you just went backwards. Because why? Because you put a stake in the ground and you were attached to that thing.
Right.
So trusting, right, and going with that flow is really going to be helpful and kind of alleviate, well, not kind of, absolutely alleviate a lot of stressors along the way, and actually let you leapfrog, jump over stuff that you can just, as you fly over at a couple 100 miles above, you can go, oh yeah, great, that's integrated, done. You can, the other thing is that because all those different things you're looking at are realities that you can be collapsing. In other words, it can come up, you have that moment where you feel and you go, feeling kind of anxious, when you look around, and whatever it could be a whole combination of those things. And just in that moment, you're integrating. So you've actually collapsed. Like if it was a bubble, you popped the bubble and what was in it went back into pure energy again, and you've collapsed that reality.
Right. Instead of obsessing over it and thereby exacerbating it and pulling it into your 3D physical situation, making matters, maybe worse for
Yes.
oneself.
Remember the videos about being in the river of love and not going,
Right.
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 That kind of stuff. Yeah. And again, what we started this part with is the proving to your soul is there's a little piece that comes up that's not much to it, but how you react to it. Are you letting your head drive the show, or are you letting your heart drive the show? So you're proving that to your soul, right? And that lets, and again, it's none of this is punitive, but some minds, I just heard a bunch go right to punitive. Okay, you can play with that if you want, and that might be something to integrate, but none of this is punitive. It's just proving, okay, this comes by, this is a little part, maybe, as you said, it's a cellular memory comes up. It's like a reflection of a cellular memory. It could be that tiny and inconsequential, right? It comes up. How you react to it, or
Right.
you just meet it and go, which is exactly what it sounds like you did.
Right.
So that's part of the proving, and then you jump again, then you expand again. So that you can get more stuff integrated and let go of, and two, really go into more fun, more, as you said, notice the superpower of noticing, comes online, and all these other things. They're all right there waiting to come into your awareness of them, not necessarily into your body because they're already there, right?
Right.
Or for you to decode them. But you're at the genesis of it. So if you're wanting on some level and letting the ego mind and the mind control it, then you want to play with that again, and you want to go tango with it, and well, it's your choice. So that's a beautiful choice. Now, if you say, well, hang on, I just heard you said, and I don't like that choice. I don't know why I made that choice, but you said it's a choice, and I don't like it. Okay, great. Well, that's awareness, and it's a feeling. So that's why, kind of the thought of dropping down into your heart and go from there, as opposed to the head. And don't react to something. Just notice something. Meet what it is. And, all those kinds of things that I'm talking about, when you behold what it wants to give, you could skip the whole integration part of that because it's so quickly, you're not really actually skipping it. You did it so quickly that you didn't even notice that you did it. And now you've moved on to the expansion thing, and you're off playing with something else that's expanding in all sorts of ways.
Right. And I got to be honest with you here, throughout this the latter part of this conversation, something really strong came in for me, a noticing of not just the way you're describing the not pegging things down, that sort of thing, holding things lightly, beholding something. It came in for me that too is or has been part of my expansion in that learning to hold things in an open-handed fashion,
Mm-hmm.
and just taking the opportunity to notice it as it's there or moving through or whatever. Not pegging down, that kind of applies for a lot of things like ideas, thoughts, belief systems, not holding anything like this, because that's that constrictive thing you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that in that moment when we were talking about it before, I can see where if that's something that I just noticed that I started applying to a lot of different areas, is just holding things in an open-minded, open-hearted, open-handed fashion, and not trying to grasp at it or hold on to it or, anything like that, because, well, that's limiting, number one. But number two, it's because everything's so multidimensional, it's not, it can't be viewed in that way, I don't feel. We were talking before about, off camera, unfortunately, about that toroidal shape and how things in the quantum, something you said, I saw for that in that moment, that I might comprehend, but I don't see a place for it to go. It's like that. It's almost like a 5D puzzle piece collecting kind of thing is what we were talking about. Yeah. And so the only way to experience all of that, I feel, for me anyway, what has helped me the most has been learning. And it's been a learning curve of how to just hold things in an open-handed fashion, allow them to be what they are, and notice them. Simply notice them. And, if they work for me, great. If they don't, that's fine too, whatever. It's not something, wow, I just got really dizzy. It's not something that I have to solidify. Oh, wow. Okay. So that not having things solidified is part of a collective fear that I've had too. But coming to the conclusion of allowing things to just be whatever they're going to be, that's kind of scary, for one thing. And I mean, at first, until you start being able to see it, that it isn't anyway. So by trying to hold on to it or make it solid doesn't necessarily make it so anyway. Oh, wow. That was very interesting. It's having that come in that way. Wow.
One of the funny things as you were been talking about that for the last little bit there, where you about open hand and holding and stuff. So you were giving one example, and a hummingbird came and landed on your hand. And then you were giving another example that might have been, maybe more constrictive or crunchy or, like not so good. And it was like a down, but a down of a thistle. So it could be a little landed on the other hand as you were going like this. And I'm watching them, and those are great metaphors. So if you're talking about, how you're holding it, or as I say, behold something to you, when you look at it, and it's on your hand, imagine, because we grab onto things and we latch on, it's glomming onto things because it's that small thing, right? It's a being small thing. But instead, this wondrous thing is landed in your hand. Would you grab at it? No, you'd go, wow, look at the colors. Look at all that kind of stuff. And in that wonder, you completely change the energy frequency of you. And it could have been this snarling, snapping monster that turned into a hummingbird or, I don't know, a tiny kitten or whatever it is. But because what you're seeing is you are at the genesis of this.
Right. Because
you're the creator of all that.
Right.
And so so holding it is great, but holding is that constriction thing, right? Which tightens it, which is actually you're giving the command. Rein this in, hold this in, lock it in. Okay. And then you get this other one and lock it in. That goes in the leg, right? And that goes here and this goes. Because that's how we do it. we've given those directives and those commands. Yes, a lot unconsciously. Yes, not paying any attention. Yes, because it was a habit that someone in the family, yes, absolutely. But you're past all that now, and well, you've been past that for a long time. But anyways, now is the moment where, it's becoming really obvious, because when you're not noticing that and you lock it in, you get feedback right away. You get creation feedback right away. And if it was locking down, clamping down, hardening down, more prickly, pokey, crunching down, then you're going to get, you can look out the window and go, there's crunchy and there's pokey and they're all coming up on the porch and going, hey, how's it going, bees? We're here because, you locked us down, and, we're going to play with that. So that's how, because everything that's in your being, in all of your bodies, right? Mental, emotional, electromagnetic, all of those things, your etheric body, so on and so forth, right? All the actual, you might say the physicalness of your body, although it's not physical, and you're finding that out as well. But all of those things, all of the cells, all of that, if it's not of love, if it is not, which, love is the easiest way to say it, because that includes all the things that are, expansive and all that beneath it. So love is just, it's only got 4 letters and it's easier to say. But if it's not of that, then it's out of here. And it can be out of here the fairly easy way, or it can be out of here the excruciatingly difficult way. And you choose.
Yeah.
But that's what's happening. And that's marvelous, delicious, cosmically delicious and wonderful, because as that goes out, then you could say you notice other things coming in. What's really is they're coming on line. So you're decoding them, and they're coming on. And what replaces that, that's not really an accurate term, but it's a good placeholder from a linear perspective. What replaces that is fresh air and such feeling of lightheartedness, and like you can, some days you just feel like, wow, everything is so effortless, and you just, there's less gravity, and you're just kind of, bounding along kind of a thing. And that's really what every situation, and heretofore really crunchy, gnarly, kind of a situation isn't like that at all. And you still realize, okay, I got a few more things to clean up here, integrate that and polish up that and let go of that, and right. But that becomes really cool and really fun and very joyful. And it's kind of like a game now to see, oh, okay, well, that's a gnarly part. I'm going to clean that up, and I'm going to, fisticuffs a little with that gnarly part. Because you realize that it's not this, hairy, gigantic monster, and we were tiny, and we were, at the mercy of that. Because it's the other way around. We're at the genesis of that.
Yeah. And all of those thought forms that, yeah, I've had a couple of thought forms that I've been the genesis of, that have come back to say howdy. So yeah, those monsters that, I was the genesis of.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get that.
Yeah, and there are times, just that, my thought I wanted to finish on for this energetic envelope was, there are times when even still a little one will come floating by, and maybe it's smarmy. Excuse me. Stop. Maybe it's smarmy generated, or maybe it's a approving kind of a thing. And it's like, I'm sitting and watching maybe, a bird fly by the window or in the room or something on TV, and I go, you again? No, thank you. I'm very good. I'm done. There may be someone else who wants to play with you, but I'm good. And it's just, it's a complete, it just takes a nanosecond, and there's no pressure. It's just laughter, as, it's really great to see you again. I forgot about you, and no, I'm still good, And so we can take care of all, I mean, you can take care of huge things that, you know, before you would have described in your life as traumas and this and that and the other thing. And they can be taken care of that effortlessly.
Right.
You know, I mean, because I've done it.
Well, I have too. Actually, a lot lately.
Yeah. And occasionally, you know, I'm not really dreaming, but I must be sleeping, and again, that kind of stuff is populating, and I'll be sound asleep. I'll wake up and go, okay, guys, knock it off. You know, I don't want to be part of this anymore. Take that outside over there, whatever you're doing, and that's it. It's good, you know. It's like, okay, and you know, these kind of funny colored monsters will walk out, trudge out of the room and go, she's no fun. She just does. But that's how it is, you know. We can do all of that. But you're not small when you're doing it.
Yes, that's right. And so when this was happening for me today, there was another little thing that came in regards to that, as I was, you know, casting around, checking out the lay of the land, so to speak, make sure it's not, you know, something that needed to be addressed. And again, it didn't take very long, but and that was well, apparently it came in and it went out. That was wow. Okay, well, I guess I wasn't supposed to share that because it is totally gone.
Well, and you could have been already integrated through this conversation, and it doesn't exist anymore.
Well, that could be it too, because it just.
I mean, that's how fast all this stuff works now, which is a really good thing. Well, it's always a really good thing no matter the perspective, but some may be stuck in a perspective that it's a really bad thing because they didn't like the crunchy, you know, chompy thing that it was, and because it's crunching and chopping you.
Actually, it just came back, and it is important. Because at one point today, and I don't know if it was actually connected to that, but it came up for me. You know, I had been feeling like I'm not concerned at how fast I'm going or where I am in this process, right? And when I was looking at these different things, that came in again for me in a way that I had to ask myself, okay, well, what's this about? Because I had already, you know, felt into not being concerned about timing. That, you know, we all are doing this in concert with a higher portion of my soul that knows what it's doing. And I've seen a lot written recently about how, you know, really not knowing certain things or not getting certain, I don't know, insights, abilities, or things revealed to us or whatever is also by design. It's not supposed to happen until specific points in time. So wanting it, rushing it, trying, you know, that feels a little more grabby. And I was experiencing that for myself with that, as I was moving through that, feeling, well, you know, maybe if I did this or did that or whatever to speed up the process of knowing more or whatever it is I think I am not doing enough of. And then, but I got the message. No, you're right where you're supposed to be. So what brought that on? I think that's but again, it was a very quick type of thing. Because, you know, for a long time I was doing that comparing thing, you know. I think we all do that sometimes. And I was, you know, really letting that go. So when it came up for me again today with this in concert to it, again, it was very brief, but it for some reason bears repeating for, well,
Yeah,
obviously
it's
someone.
another, it's another angle on that. The other thing too is that, the question that was jumping up and dancing around when you were saying that, in a really joyful, playful way to examine it is when we think, well, we need rushing to get better at that, but we haven't actually played and investigated and expanded in all the stuff we got right already. Because we're thinking,
No, that's right.
More out here, and yet, well, I want to hurry up. Well, here's the cosmic humor, because what you got right here, if you played with this, would jump you over what you think is the next step, because this is the door to open it.
No, you're right. I mean, so that's why, like I said, I got the message, which I'm really glad that I went through that little. Like I said, it's really happening. It seems to be happening a lot faster for me now as I'm examining something, because I'm getting used to doing it rather quickly and the noticing is there. And when that came in, it was almost immediate that it was like, well, that's, so I'm almost positive that there was a portion of whatever I was integrating or experiencing that was attached to that, or it brought that in with it or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a test to prove it.
But for some reason it felt, okay. Well, I think I passed. This one anyway.
Well, since you're doing the whole thing, that's good on you.
Yeah, this one anyway. So, there's that. Well, BZ, thank you for this evening.
It was fun.
Yes, it was. As a matter of fact, I don't think you and I have had a conversation alone for a very long time.
No, October of last year.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's right. So, well, all righty then. But I know that Lisa's having a good time, and we will be chatting with her again soon. I know. So,
cool.
So thank you.
Have a good night. And
it
wasn't too bouncy ball, but they were quantum balls, so
That's right. That's right. And this is what happens when we just start. That's right. All.
Which is why we try to usually,
figure out something to talk about.
Have a little bit of a flow, because
yeah, for the bouncing ball effect.
It's a little harder to stay with.
All right. Well, till next time, we'll have all the usual stuff in all the usual places.
Yeah. And come join the fun.
Yeah, exactly.